Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Our guest today is Paul Gonzales. So, Paul, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hi, I'm Paul Gonzales. I live in New York City, and what I mainly do is I'm an entrepreneur. During the day, I run a design agency for startups. We do like branding, website, UI, UX work, and at night, I'm actually part owner of a dance studio in Queens. We offer like 30 different dance classes, all in the Latin dance world, but we also have like hip hop, tango, cumbia, everything that you can think of. And so, yeah, overall entrepreneur.
Awesome. So I'm just curious more about your background. How did you kind of like endeavor into entrepreneurship?
A great question. So I think that I think I've always been an independent person. I think my parents both been they always worked for other people. It was actually only towards the later part of my first job was in college actually. And then I learned very early, I was like, I don't want to work for other people. Like I learned that like right away. Like I was like, I want to be my own boss. Like I don't want to work for other people. And then after college, I freelanced for like 10 years. And then until I opened up an agency, I finally found the focus I wanted to. And then from there, it grew up to what it is now, which is like a 20-person team. The dance studio was a happy accident actually, and how that came about. But yeah, that was just like something that I had an outlet that I like in 2016 where I knew I could work like a 15-hour day, and then I would go take a dance class and I would reset emotionally, physically, and I know I can go for another 15 hours.
So essentially, like the dance studio is more of like a hobby for you that you said, okay, that you enjoy this hobby, let me kind of make it into a business and share it with people.
Yeah, well, the business came into like, kind of came out of nowhere. We were part of it's 4 partners. I'm one of 4. We were part of another dance company in Manhattan, and then they wanted to take it over because they were running it like full time for probably about 4 years. So they wanted like ownership stake because they kind of knew it. They were keeping it alive, and then they asked for it, and then they wanted me to come in as part of it for community and everything. When that finally came to be, the owners didn't want to sell, so we branched off and made our own thing. And now it's large. It's profitable. It's doing amazing in the sense of like as a dance studio. Yeah. So very lucky.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So do you get to go there and also dance like as the owner?
Yeah, of course. I also teach classes as well. So
okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I teach probably 1 or 2 classes a week. I also direct a semi-professional salsa team. I'm also part of the pro team.
That's awesome. So in terms of your branding and design agency, so I'm curious more about that. Were you, design major? How did you kind of like get into this field?
Yeah, that's another awesome question. So this came early in my life where I think my passion for creation actually came from my mom, where she does actually fashion design. She did fashion design when she was here in New York. She did alterations her whole life. And because of that, when I grew up, I was making pillows, I was making dresses, I was helping her with all these things, designing, customizing things. I remember for my first communion, she gave me a book and I could choose what suit I wanted. She made me the whole suit, custom made. I got to go with her to like the store and actually buy the buttons. So that was very exciting overall. But yeah, I think a large of that came from my mom. And then as I got into middle school, I started getting into arts, but it wasn't like fully deep in. Like in high school, I actually dated a girl that was in the arts heavily. She wanted to go to a school that's very famous in the animation world that was in my backyard pretty much in Sarasota, Florida. And then I like looked into it, and then I was like, oh, okay, let me go try this out. And so I went to their pre-college program. And then from that point on, I was like, I want to be a designer or artist. I didn't know which one yet, actually. I started off like I might have been an illustrator or I could have been a designer. So how I decided was throughout the pre-college, which was a month long, we would take like these studio classes and we would have studio time. I would paint for like 8-9 hours, draw 8-9 hours, and then I would go design for like 2 or 3. And then like the designs were awesome compared to like the okay paintings. I got okay at painting. I loved it, but design came so naturally. I had the eye already in my eyes. Like I already had an eye of like what good design is. And so like, even though I couldn't produce it yet, it took years later to produce what you actually want and to explain it and to, talk about it in a business perspective. And that's how I chose design. It just came naturally to me.
So in terms of like design and branding, obviously that you work with many different companies. So what would you say are some like the biggest mistakes that people are making, before you're engaging with them?
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake, the biggest red flag, at least that I see a lot, is two things. The first one is they don't have a clear way explaining what they actually do. Like, I think brand is two things. It's what you're saying and how you're saying it. It's all it is. What you're saying is kind of like the strategy of it. Like, hey, this is my vision. This is my mission. This is what I'm trying to do. These are my values. How you're saying it is how you're visually saying it, like to your customers, your typography, your logo, your colors, all that stuff. One of the biggest things I see a lot is that they don't focus on what they're trying to say as a company, because a great brand, great identity is based off what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to be warm and welcoming and your visual identity doesn't reflect that, like there's a difference in that across the board. So I think one of the two things that I think people don't normally look at is they really need to focus on their strategy and like what are they saying as a company. And then on the second end, it goes twofold on how they're saying it, the visual identity. They might just hire cheap designers who just make things look good versus having it be tied to a strategy. So those are the two things that I think that most founders overlook, and how like strategically to how to actually communicate with your audience, and that like actually overall converts and actually people get a sense of your brand.
So in terms of like investing in things like branding and design, like obviously if you're working with, startups, there's different stages, you have pre-seed, seed, etc. So if someone's early stage kind of like raising money, how much does design actually help them in that process versus like once they already have some funds and more validation, at least from like investors?
Yeah. I mean, I will say a large part of investing, I think nowadays, is like the numbers and like their traction, and like getting funded now is 4 or 5x harder than it was like, 10 years ago. Honestly, like 5 years ago, I was at like a concert with a friend of mine who's a founder, and he was telling me how his friend got a $4 million pre-seed, like with just no idea, but like no product or anything, like, it just the idea. I think those days are gone, where like now you're expected to have an MVP, especially with AI and like vibe coding now. And then even for you to have some traction on like clients, like even at a pre-seed or seed level. So how design affects when fundraising is, I want to say it matters, but I would say it matters more how much you can do for yourself. But if you have design, it even adds another layer on top of it, because I will say design, having a well-run brand, is almost like putting on a suit for a job interview. It's like you're taken way more seriously. People pay attention to you. If things are everywhere on a slide deck and like things are not consistent, they're not going to take you seriously. There's a subconscious feeling about brands where everyone knows when something's off. Like you don't even have to speak about it. Like, I always give this example. You've been advertised something online and you click on it. Let's say it's like a protein shake, and then you're clicking on the process, you're clicking on the checkout, and then you start feeling weird. Things are misaligned, like a photo's like out of like resolution, and you're like, I don't know, I'm gonna go to Amazon and buy it. And literally, it's those little micro interactions, little micro decisions of like where things are aligned, they're consistent. That is the difference between feeling that way and buying something. So that's what I mean by it, is that design is definitely a tool to use on top of the already standard that startups have to do now to achieve investment.
Makes sense. Yeah, I could not agree more. I think it's something that a lot of startups are overlooking, but it's super important, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, just to your point about like the suit, right? That you want to be looking sharp and professional. I mean, yes, of course, you can come into a pitch presentation with some low fidelity wireframes, but unless have some sort of track record, it makes it much more challenging to actually pitch to investors. So I guess like when you are working with people who are at that stage, how do you kind of work with them to make it super high level and presentable for investors?
Well, I feel like we've been doing it for so long, we already know. I think the main thing where everybody is always, because we live in a startup world, like everyone is always budget conscious. a lot of our work is actually education, especially in the early stage, especially if it's a first time founder. A lot of founders don't understand that you should probably and this is on a conservative side. If you don't value design very much, you should probably be giving at least 10% of your raise to design, like in marketing. And that can be from like strategy to branding to visual identity to like website, like all that included. And that's on the lower end. Like if design actually matters to you, it may go up to 30%, 40, maybe not 40, especially at an early stage, but like 20 to 30%. I've seen some companies go just because they care about it. Everyone's price conscious. So how we've kind of worked with so many, I think we've worked with over 100 companies now, startups, is that everyone's budget conscious. And we always ask, what is your budget? They may not know. And then we tell them it usually should be 10% of your raise. And so that's how we normally start the conversation across the board. We're not shy about money. And then also we're, across the board, we're very honest of what we can do within a budget. So if we can help them, obviously, we're an agency that starts at like 15,000. So like, if their budget is like 7, then like we just suggest that they should go with a freelancer or whatnot. Just like, and then stick with and hopefully have like a freelancer that can do a wide range of stuff so they can get it. They can use them until they can do raise and then maybe get an agency or hire a designer full time that can do many of these marketing assets and strategic thinking, at least at a design perspective. But we help that along the way. My main goal is to help people. I love helping people. And so, yeah, even if it's not with us, like, it's.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think especially for design and branding, it is super important. But yeah, I mean, to your point, people have smaller budgets. And I guess just obviously nowadays, right, like a big hot topic, whether it's, clients of yours or internal in the business, is AI, right? People are looking for ways to utilize AI. So I'm curious in terms of like internally, if you can share even like, with clients, like how you've kind of used AI to help improve things.
Yeah. I mean, AI is changing every day. It changed yesterday. ChatGPT 5 came out.
Yep.
Like, it's literally changing the game, honestly, every couple of months. It's scary, but I'm lucky that I'm in a industry where it's not about the output. It's actually about a centralized feeling of a person. And so like that, you can never replicate it because it's human based. It's not like it's like numbers or whatever that can be automated, but like it's a feeling you get because of onboarding, how you talk to customers, the UX, getting emails and all that, like getting them on social, like all of that is a combined feeling that a human gets. And like that is machines can't do that yet. They might be able to get close, but even then it's more about curating the experience, about how you want people to feel. And then that's going to be that's just going to be a very unique position to be in as an agency. We use AI a lot now. And I would say in the last year, we mainly, it's very few now that people actually want custom photography. Now, I believe only large corporations are going to be using actual like photography and across the board, because if you are good enough for prompts, you can actually make, but by the way, it's still very, very hard to prompt high level photography and make it brand specific. So, which is what we do now, is that we make sure that we create prompts for our customers that they can just plug and play, take a photo that they want, plug and play the prompt, and then they can they can generate image options on that end. But yeah, I mean, it's still very hard to create AI images. I would probably say maybe, at least for me, out of every 100 images, I might get like 2 that right. I personally feel that are good enough for the client. So like, getting 100 images might take a couple days. So like we just finished with a client and they wanted a collection of like 60 images. That took us half a year to do.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it is super fascinating, right? Because like, to your point, it's like AI is definitely helping and changing the game, but it could also sort of dilute like what is actually feasible, right? When you have people like yourself who've been in the space for a while, who are professionals, right? AI, once again, is very solid, but it's not the same as when you're doing it the way that, you've been doing it per se.
Yeah. And also, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, well, I'll just go on ChatGPT or Midjourney and I'll make my own icons. I'm like, cool, awesome. I always tell people is just because you go to a department store and there's a lot of beautiful things doesn't mean that you know the exact ones to pick to make a room look beautiful and to make somebody feel a certain way when you walk in a room. just because there's options that are good doesn't mean that you know the outcome of that. And so like I always love giving that example because they're like, go to Restoration Hardware or whatever, or Restoration Warehouse and like go pick up a couple pieces and like I may be a good visual designer, but I'm horrible at spatial design. Like I've always been super bad at spatial design. So, decorating a living room, like I am horrible at that. I have good taste of like, oh, I like that lamp, I like that, thing, but that doesn't mean I know how to make things have a good say or like a clean, minimal feeling. It doesn't mean that I know that.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense. So, if you could go back in time to before you started this business, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the two things. The first one would be like more sales perspective. Well, I'm gonna add three. Sales is such a large part of it in the design agency world. It's your bread and butter pretty much. It's sales. I wish from the beginning I marketed myself more, wrote more. That's a kind of a wish I did, is that writing is such an important thing and becoming a thought leader. I'm doing it more and more. I'm trying to write every day on LinkedIn, etc., sharing my experiences, etc. It's so important as a communicator overall. So that's one aspect. Two is having a CRM of everybody I've ever met and like logging it down. Like that is also very important to have like a digital like CRM overall. So I wish I did that sooner. Because in this world, it really is about who you know. So, and just keep in contact with people that you really admire and overall like find interesting in being in those circles. And then the last thing, also very important, is I wish I could told myself earlier, is that creating a large company, or not large because it's small still, but it's a marathon. It's like a it's not like, oh, it takes like 1 or 2 years. Like it takes like years. Like I finally feel like I got the hang of it on year like 4, and then like we're finally hitting benchmarks now on year 5, and like I can see growth and like overall how to execute everything. We have processes now. It's like a legit thing now. And so not only that, be patient with the marathon, but also make sure you have the right people around you. I heavily invested the people around me. My team, like my core team, like I've been lucky that they've been by me the last 4 years and they've seen the growth, and like their lives got better, my life got better. It's like it's so important who is on your team. And that by itself, like that's huge. Who's on your team, because that makes or break. You're spending 8-10 hours a day with these people on calls, etc., working, reviewing, and you're providing a service to others. So like it's very important to understand the people who work with you, who they are in their hearts and what they want to do, because they have to align with, at least for me, they have to align with me. Like these have to be good people. They can't be like, like evil people inside. So like I think when all that is, and we even vet that, we have a way how we hire that, like we vet, their vibe. I'm going to say, and how they work with our team, because our team is very small. But the number one thing I hear at every single project at the end is like, I love your team because you guys like each other. You can tell. You guys cover each other's back, like every single client has a Slack channel dedicated to them. And, just because they ask a question doesn't mean the PM is going to answer. It could be a designer. It could be the engineer or whatnot, or it could be the strategist or me. Like we always have everyone's back, including our clients. And I think it's a different conversation when you work with a group like that overall.
No, it's good advice. So if somebody watching this show wanted to work with you, wanted to reach out, do you mind sharing your website, socials, I guess, best ways to get in contact?
Yeah, definitely can go to my our website, where it's this www.alt-black. There's a dash between alt and black, and it's .nyc. So alt-black.nyc. Yeah, you can just email us there. Add me on LinkedIn, Paul Gonzales. You'll see me with a different version of these glasses, and me smiling. And then or you can add me on Instagram, Paul Gonzz. Same thing, glasses, smiling. You'll see some salsa on my Instagram page. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Paul, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, no problem, Dan. Thank you so much.